Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faithful Dogs podcast. I am Tyler Johnson. I am joined by Zach DeFranco, Jack Robinson. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good.
Hire Brian.
Oh, okay. We're getting right to it.
Wow,
like
you don't even give us a chance to do an intro. Wow, Jack.
Look, I finally got what I wanted, so I'm gonna start being more vocal now.
I hope we get a rant, because I think for the last 2-3 years you've been talking about fire Joe Woods. But here's the thing you do though, Jack. You go fire Joe Woods, but then towards the back half of every season when it starts picking up, you're like, actually, he could save his job. So
I wasn't saying that because I wanted him to save his job. I was saying that because that seems to usually be the way that the seasons go, is that, he does just enough at the end of the season to save his job. Luckily, he was too far gone this season, so they just couldn't.
They basically said that needed to stop. It needed to be a full season of consistency at least. And I know we're going to get into the press conference a little bit. I know me and Tyler talked about it too a little bit, but it's pretty clear who actually fired Joe Woods. So I kind of like that. That kind of gave me a sigh of relief too, that we'll get into later.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to get to tonight. And before we get to any of it, if you guys are joining us tonight on Twitter, we can't see any of your questions. We can't get any of your comments. So if you would come join us on the YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. And you can subscribe for free. And once you do, you are entered in for exclusive giveaways like the one we have right now live right now. And it'll end next Wednesday. It is to a Cavs shirt of your choice, courtesy of our partners at Homage. So go to the YouTube channel. If you're not already a member, be sure to subscribe. Again, it's free. And we're trying to go to 1,000 subscribers here. So we really would appreciate everybody's support with that. And speaking of Homage, again, go check out all the latest merchandise that they have available for you guys. New NBA Jam line. You're going to want to make sure you check that out, even if you don't end up winning the giveaway. But before we get into the Browns press conference, because a lot was said that we need to discuss, let's take a second and hear from our partner, Underdog Fantasy.
What's up, everybody? We know that daily fantasy never stops, and Network 216 is proud to be a partner with Underdog Fantasy. Very simple to use. All you have to do is go to underdogfantasy.com, and you will just click the sign in button. You'll create an account if you haven't done so already. If you've not created an account, it'll ask you to enter a code. Enter code 216, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, live draft lobbies that you get to compete with you and your friends. It's no salary cap like DraftKings and FanDuel. You get to go to a draft lobby, pick the players you want, or you can do daily pick'ems, which give you access to all the NFL and NBA games for you to make your picks every single night. Again, go to underdogfantasy.com or use the Underdog Fantasy app on iOS or Android. Use code 216 to double your first deposit up to $100. Sign up today.
And in the chat tonight, Josh, appreciate you joining us every week, man. We're excited, always pumped to have you. Random Cardboard, thank you for joining as well. Gentlemen, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, they spoke on Monday after Kevin Stefanski, it sounds like, is the one that made the decision to fire Joe Woods. I thought that was an interesting piece of information, but something else. Kevin Stefanski was asked on special teams coordinator Mike Prefer, and he said he hasn't gotten the chance to sit down with him and with every coach. He said those are things we're working through. So first off, we've already fired one coordinator, Joe Woods. Do you guys think Mike Prefer is next?
I do 100%. I kind of like how they kind of keep things hidden. They're not just going to come out and straight up say it like, oh yeah, like we just haven't gotten there yet. Like, I feel like that's what fans kind of want. Like, that's not going to happen. These two right here, and I don't know if you guys watched the press conference, like our listeners right now, and these two right here are like, they're close. Like, you could just tell during that press conference, they're just laughing, having a good time with the media. Like, Stefanski knows he's safe. It felt different from a losing season press conference than we usually get in Cleveland. So I think he's next. But I think the main and important one is get your new DC. I think you're going to get a new DC before too, possibly. So
Yeah, I would have to think that that we're going to be seeing a shift at the special teams coordinator position, just because it's the same thing with Joe Woods, where the play was so inconsistent this year, and it's kind of been like that every season. We've seen just really bad inconsistencies with special teams. Like this year, it was returning was really bad. Last year, like blocking and just stopping teams from returning on us was really bad. So it seems to be an issue with Mike Prefer himself, or just the way that he prepares his teams before the season and then during the season. So I could definitely see it happening. I don't know if it's going to happen like right away, or if they're still maybe just analyzing, whether they really want to go through that overhaul, or if they're comfortable with maybe some of the things that he improved at the end of the season. But I would say that there's a strong possibility that Mike Prefer's gone.
And I think the thing that kind of surprises me just a little bit, it's not necessarily that Mike Prefer is on the hot seat or going to end up getting fired, because I agree with you guys. It's more so that it might actually happen, because the thing about the NFL is special teams coordinators, and I've seen many people say it, it's one of those positions like you can have it. I mean, we saw it for a while with Chris Tabor, I think his name was. That dude was here for, I think, a decade under multiple coaching staffs. It's a special teams coordinator. So it's not something that necessarily you have a lot of turnover at that position. So that's the only thing that would surprise me about Mike Prefer in that regard. And I think something positive that came out of all this, people have their opinion on Stefanski, whether I agree with it or not, about how they feel about him. It does sound like he is the one that made this decision to part ways with Joe Woods. And I think that speaks volume, because everyone's like, oh, Paul DePodesta, he's running things. Does Stefanski have the power to even – by the way, Tony Rizzo and Tony Grossi are just old men that like to shout about every little thing, in case you guys ever listen to the Really Big Show. But they're just saying that they don't like they're like, oh, Kevin Stefanski doesn't have the power to do that. Well, we found out he does. So I was really encouraged by it. And Zach, kind of like you said, some people don't like the mentality that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski handle the media. Yeah. How do you guys feel about it? Because a lot of comments I saw is like, well, these guys aren't acting like that they're like they have to win next year or they'll be fired or anything like that. So what are your guys' perspective? Do you like the way they handle themselves, or do you wish that sometimes they would be more open, more honest, and be like, we got to get this thing turned around? Or, I mean, we might not be around next year. The year after.
I think they know they're turning it around. I think this year was tough. I mean, Deshaun Watson even said it at one of his final press conferences, was like, yeah, when that suspension went to 11 games, he even knew like it's going to be a different year. It's going to be a tough year, but he still expected to get into the playoffs. The team still expected to get into the playoffs. So it's still a letdown of a year, because we have the talent outside of just our quarterback to make the playoffs. And there were games that we should have won, but I think they know deep down the change they needed to make, and they did it. So now it's time. But I know a lot of people also questioned, why didn't they do it earlier then? There's no position coach on that team that was going to be able to call plays for Joe Woods in replacement of Joe Woods. I don't even think Kiffin could have done it, our defensive line coach. So the grass wasn't greener after that. It would have probably been more of a disaster. Probably would have lost more games. So I don't know how you feel, Jack, but
yeah, I feel like a lot of people – I think it's mostly an issue with Kevin and the way that Kevin speaks, and that he's very even keel and he doesn't like get super emotional or super, like it's the same thing with all of his post game press conferences where he says the same thing. Like people just don't. I think there are a lot of people in Cleveland that want the GM and the coach to be super emotional, super open about everything, how they feel, how they felt, like how upset they are. And I think that these guys are really good at keeping their heads kind of on their shoulders and realizing that they need to kind of just look at things objectively, and that they don't need to be super emotional about how they feel, because it should be obvious how they feel. They are the heads of a football team that lost, and they look at it more like, hey, let's look at it, how we can improve it going into next year, and not really worry about all the missteps and just worry about improving, which I think a lot of people don't like, because they'd rather hear them say, yeah, we're pissed, we suck, we're super mad, we had to get rid of Joe Woods because he sucks, and don't worry, we're not going to let this happen again, when they already know that that's their job, and that's what people should expect from them anyways. They don't have to verbalize the things that they already think that people should expect from them.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to it's professional. One thing about Stefanski and Andrew Berry, These are guys that are professionals. They're young guys, but they're not going to come out and just slam people. They're not going to slam players. They're not going to slam coaches. It's just not what they do. I mean, Kevin Stefanski raved about Joe Woods as a person. I have no problem with that at all. Like, I mean, they develop relationships. Like, your GM, you don't want your GM and your coach just going out and slamming people. You really don't, because that doesn't make you an attractive job. I think what we got to understand too is, yes, the winning percentage under Stefanski and Andrew Berry has gone down since they took over, but you can't just go around firing people every single year, because you're never going to establish. Everyone talks about culture. You're never going to have a culture. You're never going to establish a culture if all you do is fire people. Like, it's just not going to happen. So they're going into year 4, and it is a make or break year for them. I think one question I want to ask you guys too, because it's another question that gets brought up a lot. Do you think they are taking accountability for the results? Because again, I'm not saying it. There's a good portion of media and fans that say there's a lack of accountability from the head coach, the general manager, and the entire organization.
Well, what kind of accountability do they want to see?
Well, I mean, taking responsibility for the season, and I thought I saw it in the presser.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Andrew Berry said that we didn't have the right mix in all areas, and that goes beyond talent and scheme. So essentially, Andrew Berry's taking responsibility for the fact of the performance this year.
Well, Kevin always takes responsibility. Every single game, he says that it's his fault. He didn't call the right plays, didn't run the right plays, didn't adjust well enough, didn't do all that. And that at some point it got annoying, because I think a lot of people just thought, well, why don't you address the actual problem? But I mean, he's taking accountability for his mistakes, and he's not going to throw anyone under the bus. And Andrew Berry does the same thing. They're both very alike. That's why when Andrew Berry came in, it was with the whole idea of, we want everyone in this front office to be aligned. We want them to all have the same ideas, all kind of be able to work with each other, and they all think the same. They all think, hey, we should take responsibility for the things that we did wrong. If we mess up, we all have to kind of, put our heads down and say, yep, we messed up. We have to fix it. And that's what they did. And so, like, that's the issue, is that everyone wants to talk about accountability. What do you want them to do? You want Jimmy Haslam to come out here and punish them?
I never want him talking to the media
publicly?
ever again.
Like, I just don't understand what people actually want.
I never want Jimmy Haslam speaking to the media ever again.
Yeah, honestly.
Ever, dude. Ever. After this offseason, D Haslam can talk to the media if she wants.
I have no problem with D Haslam speaking.
I do not want Jimmy Haslam speaking to the media ever again, dude.
So some other interesting comments that came from the presser. I think it was Kevin Stefanski talking about, he thinks the offense should look different next season, and said they have things they haven't gotten yet that they would like to this spring and summer. To me, that says they're going to go out there and they're going to add some weapons on the perimeter. That's 100%. Exactly what it says to me. 100%. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, they have to. That's the only thing that can mean. I mean, because I think everyone can agree that the only thing, or like the main thing that the Browns are missing, is a deep threat wide receiver that can consistently get open and can catch the ball. Like, we've been waiting on Schwartz. We've been waiting on him to develop. He just hasn't developed.
I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying that just because Jacob's in the chat. I'm not saying that specifically because of that. I'm not specifically just trying to be mean to Anthony Schwartz. I'm just saying that we need a guy who can stretch the defense, that can give Deshaun Watson a deep threat wide receiver that can really elevate this offense, because we have two really good receivers like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper, but no one that really takes the top off the defense. I think that's one of their main objectives this offseason, is to improve at that position.
So who do you go with? Like, who is your?
You know who I like? I like what I like what I saw Jack Duffin say on the OBR. He mentioned a couple names, young names. Now, this would require, just brace yourself, you would have to probably trade Greg Newsome to make this happen, given the fact you do have a surplus of corners. So he mentioned Elijah Moore, and he mentioned Jerry Jeudy. I'm for it. You have a surplus of corners. You would be able to then retain AJ Green. He would move up. You're also probably going to draft a corner, because Andrew Berry loves drafting corners anyway and is really good at finding them. You have MJ Emerson playing out with Denzel Ward. See, here's the problem. Down the line, there's going to be a log jam at some point, because you're not going to keep Greg Newsome is not a slot corner. It's just not what he is, and they put him there this year.
No, and I think Emerson having the year he had could
makes
give
it a
them some more.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Because Ward's already paid, and I know a lot of people were talking about him being gone. Jack Duffin wrote an article on that too. It's probably unrealistic to happen at least within the next 2 years, right? So,
Mhm.
I would say MJ Emerson proved himself that he could be a cornerback too as well. But I also think MJ Emerson can be better in the slot than Newsom was as well, though too. So that being said, you can just keep both. I think they want to have that kind of secondary though. So I don't know. I don't know if I see that happening, honestly.
It's tough. I mean, because you do have a surplus, and if you need a receiver,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Greg Newsom was more consistent this year than Ward, dude. I would rather have Greg Newsom.
And I mean, he's on a
It's
rookie
easier to
deal.
trade than
Yeah.
Denzel Ward,
I know
is
he's
what
easier to
mean.
trade. I'm sure of that, but
Hey man,
it is tough though because
I would love Elijah Moore in this offense. I really would.
I mean, I would love Jerry Jeudy in this offense. Anyone, you know what I mean? But it is tough though because like when you look at the free agent market of wide receivers, it's bleh this year. It really is. It really is. And like the only person I got myself like excited for was Mecole Hardman, and Tyler, you talked me out of that. So
and I didn't want to. It's just I think someone is going to completely overpay him, and if he's not lighting it up in Kansas City, dude, what do you think he's going to do in Atlanta or something like that? I mean, that's the way I look at it personally. I just don't see a guy like that
unless Lamar goes to Atlanta. Then they got Pitts, London.
That's a whole other conversation we could have on an entire show. Is a Lamar Jackson show.
Oh my god! And he should not play again until they extend him. He should not play again.
I will say the final quote I wanted to get to, because then we can move on to defensive coordinator candidates here. Kevin Stefanski said that he is open to anything that will help the team win, including maybe a difference in the play calling process, meaning he is willing to give up plays. The question I ask you guys, do you want Kevin Stefanski to stop calling the plays?
Yeah, go get LaFleur.
Hey,
about that.
Hey, I'm all over it. Go get Mike LaFleur, bring him back. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw the report when he parted way with the Jets and Robert Saleh. Saleh necessarily didn't want to let him go, but Mike LaFleur has other opportunities.
Yeah,
I don't know. There might be. I don't know. I think I don't know if that means Cleveland, but there's definitely
might mean going back to San Francisco.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question on whether or not Kevin should give up the play calling. I think that there is an argument that maybe there should be some games where he just doesn't and some games where he does. Maybe test it, just see like, hey, what's it like when Kevin doesn't call plays? Like, how well is the process? How quickly do the plays come out? How much more efficient are the plays? Because I do think it is beneficial having that offensive coordinator up in the box, being able to tell you like, hey, what he sees, and then being able to call the plays there rather than Kevin needing to worry about all the individual in-game stuff and calling the plays and getting the specific players out on the field. Like, it's way too much for one guy to handle. I think just limiting how much he has to take on his plate and giving it to some guy, whether that be Alex Van Pelt, if he's going to still be here, or if it's another offensive coordinator that they decide to bring in, I'm all for him, maybe taking on a less controlling role of the offense in terms of just calling the plays.
And here's what people need to understand, because someone asked me on Twitter today what it is Alex Van Pelt even does. Alex Van Pelt has a bigger role than you guys think. He helps work with the quarterbacks. He comes up with the offensive game plan with Kevin Stefanski. And on game days, Stefanski might be the one calling plays, but Alex Van Pelt is giving him input. It's not like it's just one guy doing everything. That's not how it works. So
am I mistaken?
I don't know what's going to happen with Van Pelt.
Was this his first year? Was this his first year on the sidelines too, Van Pelt, since he's been in Cleveland? Usually he's in the booth, right? No, he's always on the sideline?
He has been on the sideline, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought he was in the booth last year at least.
Yeah. I don't believe
I think he was in away games, but
maybe away games, yeah. But I normally would see him on the sideline, so that's what I figured. I mean, what Van Pelt does will be a topic of conversation. The Browns might lose Chad O'Shea to the Patriots if they add an offensive coordinator, since he's from New England anyway. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That's another position coach the Browns might have to fill. A lot of questions this offseason, but the one we're really going to talk about tonight, and this is the one everyone wants to talk about, defensive coordinator position. So The Browns have 4 interviews lined up. They have Jim Schwartz. He is a Titans assistant, former Eagles defensive coordinator, Lions head coach, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as their defensive coordinator. You have Brian Flores, former New England Patriots defensive assistant, former Miami Dolphins head coach, and now a Steelers defensive assistant. Gerard Mayo, he is a former New England Patriot player. He's 7-time captain. He is also the inside linebackers coach and been on staff since he retired with Bill Belichick. He is the de facto, they said, basically defensive coordinator, but without the title, which makes him eligible to be interviewed by the Browns. And Sean Desai, who is the former Bears defensive coordinator and now is a Seattle Seahawks assistant. We don't know the information yet on his interview. It'll have to be after this weekend since the Seahawks are in the playoffs. And another rumored candidate that we have no information on, but multiple people have said it looks like they're going to interview is Wisconsin interim head coach, former interim head coach and former Browns safety Jim Leonard. So, guys, I was able to put together, and I want to thank Jack Duffin from the OBR for doing this. Jim Schwartz, if he were to become the Browns head coach, not head coach, my apologies, defensive coordinator.
Whoa! You're foreshadowing too fast.
Here are some of. He actually interviewed for the head coaching position the year Kevin Stefanski did the second time. So here's a list of players that he's coached this year that would be free agents in Tennessee. So I think this is great that Jack did this because it gives you an idea on what players could be brought to Cleveland if these particular candidates take over. So Jim Schwartz is the guy that runs the scheme the Browns ran pretty much. Very good blitz rate. So how would you guys feel about Jim Schwartz becoming the Browns defensive coordinator?
I feel like that's like more of like I don't know. I love Flores. I would definitely love Flores, but I feel like Jim Schwartz is just like the smart move, right? Do you guys get that feeling as well?
It's a plug and play kind of thing. It's just like you bring in a guy who kind of already knows the scheme and the players that you're already working with. So it would be probably way easier.
Probably way more respect in that locker room.
Yeah.
Instantly. Off the rip, way more respect. Like you said, Tyler, his blitz rate too. Like you're going to get to the quarterback a lot more. Myles Garrett's probably going to, have a field day in that kind of defense. Like, I mean, obviously, address linebackers, please, because I don't know what the heck we're going to do. But yeah, like I just feel like Jack said, like it's a plug and play. It's someone that it's familiar with the scheme and can probably play to these players' strengths way more than Joe Woods did.
He focuses a lot more, I think, on having a stronger defensive line, which has been the weakness of this team for like 2 years now. So I think having a guy come in that has that sort of focus and that sort of determination to make that like the focal point of your defense is huge. So yeah, I would love if Schwartz came in and became the defensive coordinator.
And like you said, Zach, Jim Schwartz is the guy that it's more of a seamless transition. As far as what scheme he wants to run based off the type of personnel the Browns currently have. And we're going to talk about the next guy here. This is the most popular. Jim Schwartz, by the way, interviewed with the Browns today for the defensive coordinator position. Tomorrow, it is going to be, most people say, the favorite for this job, and that is Brian Flores. I had the opportunity. I was very fortunate, actually, that I submitted a question to Albert Breer for Monday Morning Quarterback, and he actually answered it. I asked him who he believed would be the Browns' next defensive coordinator. Now, the name on this list he listed was Brian Flores. And I want to read to you exactly what he said because this gives a great picture of where we are in this process. He said, I really like their candidates, and I do think it's indicative to some degree of ex-Lions GM Bob Quinn's growing influence in the organization. That's interesting. 3 of the 4 guys interviewing were raised in the business by Bill Belichick, just like Bob Quinn. The one who doesn't have such ties is Seattle assistant Sean Desai, who is friendly with Kevin Stefanski and is a favorite of the Browns analytics team and competed against the Browns coach 4 years in the NFC South. He continues to say, if I had to peg a favorite right now, I would probably go with Pittsburgh senior defensive assistant linebackers coach Brian Flores. And I have heard owner Jimmy Haslam is a fan of his. Now, Patriots linebackers coach Gerard Mayo has merit too, in that there has been a lot of coordinator-type functions to his job with the Patriots. He runs meetings, helps us on the defense and game plans, and he could be a culture changer for a unit that, in an honest moment, Browns people would tell you they need on defense. Conversely, going with Jim Schwartz, whose connection to Belichick is actually from Cleveland, would represent two different things. The first would be scheme familiarity. What he would presumably bring is a lot closer to the Pete Carroll style of defense that Joe Woods ran the past 3 years in Cleveland. The second is a connection to Andrew Berry from the time the two were together in Philadelphia. And to end it, he says, so again, I'd say Brian Flores is probably the one with the added benefit of such a hire kicking the legs out from underneath a division rival. We'll see what happens. So, gentlemen, we know Deshaun Watson likes Brian Flores. That has been quite obvious. He wanted to go to Miami to play for Brian Flores. Flores wanted him in Miami and was the reason the Dolphins were trying to trade for him. How would you guys feel if Brian Flores became the Browns defensive coordinator?
I would love it. Like, I just like guys who are proven in this league and who are real leaders of men. Because I think that, like, obviously Jim Schwartz is great, and I'm sure he's incredibly respected. Brian Flores in Miami, when he was the head coach, had one of the best defensive units in football. I mean, Xavier Howard had how many interceptions in that defense? That defense was one of the best in the league when he was the head coach of it. And the simple fact is that he's a guy who brings in culture, he brings in grit, he brings in an identity, and he comes in and he immediately kind of creates like I want this team to look like this. I want my team to play this hard, and they're going to play this hard. And he brings in like a set of expectations for himself and for everybody else. And especially considering that, you know, he has experience as a head coach of a football team. So bringing him in to only lead one side of the football means that he's going to get even more hands-on with that unit, really bring all that experience. And I think that he could be a perfect fit with all these guys, especially guys like Miles, guys like Denzel. I mean, he just seems like the kind of guy that you would want to be your defensive coordinator. It would be like having a second head coach on the team. Now, I know a lot of people might be afraid of that, but I think that it would be like the perfect fit for it.
Definitely not afraid of that, because I think depending on what they do at offensive coordinator, which we alluded to earlier, but this could be the guy that if somehow stuff goes wrong with Kevin and they need to make a decision on Kevin, Brian Flores, Schwartz, even Mayo are those guys that come in as interim head coaches and kind of lead a team through something that's, you know, you don't want to happen. So, but in terms of the defense, like, this is the move I would like. It's like him, or even when I heard about Mayo's name, I didn't even expect Mayo to come up for us until we heard it. But those are those two. That's that younger move you do, that culture changer. Like, that's something that this defense needs. They need a new identity, a new culture, a new system to believe in. And I think Brian Flores definitely brings that. And I think he'd be well respected as well, right off the bat.
I'm a huge Brian Flores fan. He is a guy that would absolutely change the culture on that defense. And Brian Flores, some stats from his defenses. So when he was the Dolphins head coach, his defense blitzed at the highest rate in the NFL. That is 42.6%. He ran man defense at the highest rate in the NFL at 50%. The 11th best run defensive grade is 72.4. The 7th best run D grade. Oh, my bad. Team grade. 11th best overall team grade at 72.4. And some other statistics. Overall EPA allowed, minus 0.071, which is 6th best in the NFL. Success rate allowed, 43.2%. That was 6th in the NFL. Against the pass, his defenses were 3rd. His success rate was 45.9%, which is 6th. And against the run, he was 19th. And the success rate allowed was 13th at 38.7%. And those stats are courtesy of John Costco at Pro Football Focus. So Brian Flores is a guy I'm really interested in. Zach, I'm going to disagree from the standpoint. I don't think it's going to be difficult. And they're going to get one of their guys, I believe. But you also have to basically get these guys here. The one thing that coordinators don't want, they don't want to come into a position where a coach like has the possibility of being canned. Because then what you're doing,
I was saying if something went wrong,
well,
he's someone that could just take over.
But what I've seen is like the issue that the Browns have compared to some of these other like new jobs that are opening is there's not that sense of security that a potential assistant would have. So, like, for instance, Arizona, Indianapolis, people have said some of these guys the Browns are interviewing could wait for those jobs because if someone wants to hire them, it's a good chance they're going to have a higher level of security, at least for a couple years.
Mhm.
That I think they're going to get one of these guys. But it's just something to keep in mind because I think if things went south with Kevin, what you're going to see is you're going to see somebody that, like you saw in Denver. The reason Averho didn't take that job because there was no guarantee they were going to make him the head coach. And if there's no guarantee, someone's not going to want to hitch their wagon to that. And that's why Averho might not even be in Denver like after this. So just something to keep in mind. I'm a huge Flores fan. Before we get to our next candidate, keep in mind, guys, Brian Flores likes to run a 3-4 system. So just keep that in mind. That would not currently fit the Browns personnel, and they would have to make some moves in order to run that system. And Myles Garrett would turn into more a TJ Watt as a stand-up 3-4 edge. So
look what he's doing as a stand-up interior defensive lineman this year.
That's what's incredible.
Dude, like, I think Myles would love that. I personally think Myles would love that.
I think he would too.
I mean, Myles is really good at honestly, the funny thing is that he's really good at running people down. Like he's not like slow or anything. Like he can move off the line and really be like one of those guys who can get behind the line of scrimmage and make tackles like a linebacker. So, I mean, it probably wouldn't be the easiest transition. Like he probably wouldn't be something that we'd see very often, but I think it would be. I don't think he would be averse to it. I think that he would at least be open to the change if that was something that Brian Flores did want to implement.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. The next candidate is a guy that he's my second favorite personally. I'm just going to be honest. I love the fact he's a former player, and recently he's a 7-time captain, so he's got leadership. It sounds like players gravitate to him. Oh, my bad. My apologies. Here are some of the free agents that Brian Flores could hypothetically bring with him to Cleveland. Just a few of them. Chris Wormley really sticks out to me for sure. I don't think they'd bring back Larry Ogunjobi. I think that one is sailed because if they wanted to, they could have done it.
Carl Joseph.
He's got to go to the Ravens. He's got to go to every single AFC North team.
DeMonte Casey is an interesting one because the Browns had previous interest in him. According to Brad Steinbrück at the OBR, they tried to bring him in. Yeah. So those are just some of the free agents. Devin Bush could be interesting as well. Former first round. No, Andrew Berry loves his former first round picks. That could be another option.
Now we're bringing in Bates. Don't worry, guys.
Gerard Mayo. This guy is Mary Kay Cabot wrote a great article on Gerard Mayo. If you guys want more information, I would recommend going to her account at Mary Kay Cabot and reading this article. Basically, he's earned high praise from Bill Belichick over the years and is known for unifying players both as a linebacker and as an assistant coach, which he's been since 2019. He's well respected as any player in the locker room. He's one of the best overall team leaders, players, and kind of group chemistry guy that I've ever been around. Bill Belichick said that in 2014. He means a lot to our team. I'd say he's really the guy that the team probably revolves around more than any other player. Not that there are many other players that are instrumental in that, but I think he touches pretty much everybody, not just the defensive players, but all guys, and not just the older guys, but the younger guys. Even when he was a captain in his second year, he had a relationship with the older guys. I mean, Tom Brady said great things about him. He's willing to do the little things to help the team, help his teammates. I'm encouraged, man. Like, this is a guy that I think, like you talked about culture, I think Gerard Mayo could do that. And I know people are nervous about a first-time coordinator. It sounds like he's the one preparing the defense. I mean, Bill Belichick does call the plays on defense, and even his son too. But Mayo's the one that's putting together the game plan for it.
100%.
I don't think that people say that he's a first-time coordinator. I don't think that he's a first-time coordinator. I think that he just doesn't have the title of defensive coordinator because they have the best defensive coach in the league, Bill Belichick, who's a defensive coach. So they don't really need a defensive coordinator. But the fact that is like kind of what you're saying, Tyler, that he's the one who's writing up the plays, going through all the matchups, kind of, developing how they're going to play against all these teams. So he kind of does take on that role of defensive coordinator without having that official title. So I don't think I would be super concerned if he became the defensive coordinator, because he kind of does already have experience doing the preparatory work that you would need as a defensive coordinator anyways.
And that's what hurts New England. That's what hurts the Patriots, is they have had opportunities to give him that defensive coordinator title, and they have not done that. And that's why he's able to be interviewed by the Browns. Now, something to keep in mind, Albert Breer has mentioned this multiple times. The reason he would consider the Browns as a defensive coordinator position, one, he does want to call plays. It would be close for his family. It's about a 1 hour plane ride.
Yeah.
And if he's going to leave New England and it's not going to be a head coaching job, he wants it to be a close location. Something else with Gerard Mayo, I don't think he's as easy to get potentially as Jim Schwartz or maybe even Brian Flores, because Gerard Mayo is going to have – the Eagles love Gerard Mayo from when they interviewed him to be their head coach. And the Eagles are potentially going to lose defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon to the Houston Texans when Jonathan Gannon, it looks like, becomes their head coach. So something to keep in mind. How would you guys feel about Gerard Mayo's defensive coordinator? I know people are nervous. I would personally, I would
I'm
love
not,
it. And I think Myles Garrett would gravitate towards him.
Yeah, I feel like you're more excited about him than Brian Flores, kind of.
I'm pumped, man.
Yeah,
I've gotten to the point where it's almost 1A, like 1A, 1B.
1A, 1B.
Like, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Brian Flores would definitely be like a house favorite there, you know. But I think I feel like Mayo would come in. I feel like he would have to earn it more than Brian Flores would, just because of, you know, all that stuff. But at the same time, like you said, dude, he would be the ultimate players coach. Like, he has played the game. He was a beast at playing the game. Like, he was good, and I just feel like it would be awesome. It would be awesome to have. I would love to see the energy on the sidelines as well. That's something that you want to see.
Zach. Something that you don't see a lot in the NFL. You're seeing it more these days for younger assistants. You don't see a lot of position coaches that are being interviewed for head coaching jobs. Gerard Mayo has been interviewing for head coaching jobs. Not necessarily a head coach, yet,
so keep that in mind as well.
But just overall, Jack, what are your thoughts on Gerard Mayo as the next Browns defensive coordinator?
Oh no, I think that would be a great fit too. I mean, it's just because like the thing about the Patriots is that their defenses have always been good, and obviously Bill Belichick gets a lot of credit for that. But Gerard Mayo again is kind of like their de facto defensive coordinator, and him being able to really get those guys motivated, get those units, you know, together, get them organized, and kind of, you know, make up all these plays that, you know, makes it so that the team functions the way that it does, and it's so successful seemingly every year. They always seem to have a very consistent good defense. I would love to have someone like that, especially because he's a former player, because he's had success in the league, both as a coach and as a player. It would really make it so that I think a lot of guys would be more willing to listen to what he says, you know, really, you know, get motivated behind him, and he would be able to really bring this defensive unit that has had so many issues with miscommunication and not really understanding and not really, you know, communicating with each other correctly. I feel like Gerard Mayo would be able to come in and really kind of, you know, unify the locker room on that side of the ball, and hopefully, you know, fix a lot of these issues with personnel that we've had the last couple of years.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I think I'm to the point Gerard Mayo is my 1B, and he might become my favorite. I love what he brings to the table. I do. And here are some of the potential free agents that he could bring along with him. Jabril Peppers stands out as someone who visited Cleveland last year, and New England offered him more money, so he went to New England. Raekwon McMillan's another one that stands out to me. Definitely stands out.
Bring back Mac Wilson.
Oh gosh, man. Give me Raekwon McMillan. Bring him in. But so what we're gonna do? I had the Sean Desai on here as well, but since the Browns aren't interviewing him this week, and we're wrapping it up here, might as well get to our poll question. And the poll question that we had, my apologies, wrong photo, is DeAndre Hopkins. He has been reported by Jordan Schultz from The Score. He is demanding a trade out of Arizona. It's basically been implied at this point. So the question we asked all of you, should the Browns trade for DeAndre Hopkins? If 547 votes, 51.2 of you said no, and 48.8 of you said yes.
Dang.
I am shocked, but I am also happy, dude. That makes me feel good.
That
makes me feel good. Wow.
We have a smart fan base.
We're getting there. Analytics.
We are getting
Ivy
there.
League. Ivy
we are
League,
getting
dude.
It's what it is, man. I mean, first off with you guys, DeAndre Hopkins, what I have to say, let's get this out of the way first. It's not that we don't want DeAndre Hopkins to become a member of the Browns, but he's going to be we have Amari Cooper, who's younger, going to be 29, making $20 million a year. You're going to be extending DPJ for probably what is going to be around 11 to 12 million a year. It's what it's looking like. The contract that was laid out by Jack Duffin, because DeAndre Hopkins wants a new contract at 31 years old, because why wouldn't he? 72 million for 3 years, which would give him 24 million a year for a 31-year-old wide receiver. I don't see it. And it would make if you want to improve the defense, you can't bring in DeAndre Hopkins. If you want to say forget it, then bring in DeAndre Hopkins. That's what I have to say on it. What are your guys' thoughts?
No, that's exactly where my mind went. Because obviously, when you first see it, you go, okay, like that connection with Watson, that would be awesome. Then the obvious comes out. Oh, he wants a new contract as well. So 31 years old. It doesn't even sound like an Andrew Berry move. And people keep bringing up the Cooper, like, oh, you guys didn't expect Cooper either. I don't think anyone expected us to trade for Amari Cooper for a 5th, and there could be a possibility where he gets cut. Something like that happens. It could get there, because I don't know, now that teams know he wants out and he wants a new contract, I don't know what they're going to be offering for him. I don't know what you guys think he'll get, but I don't know. I still can't see it being just a 5th round pick.
It's not going to be a 5th round pick.
It's probably going to be a 4th or a 3rd. And the thing, even if he gets cut, he's still getting a big contract somewhere, because this free agent class is trash at wide receiver. Like, Michael Thomas is going to get cut by the Saints, and someone's going to overpay him too.
I could still see us trading for a wide receiver, but I see it more being like a Brandon Cooks, something like that. That's more of what I see happening. And then, because I don't think they're going to just wait for the draft and hope they can get their guy to fall to them. And I don't even know who they would be interested in by the time that comes around. But say a Hyatt falls to them, or if JSN somehow falls to them, something like that. But I don't know if they're going to just wait for the draft. They're definitely going to make an improvement in free agency through trade, something at wide receiver as well. But they're going to definitely be spending on the defense and drafting for the future. So I just don't.
We have to keep in mind too with this is with Brandon Cooks, because dude, I'm all over Cooks. I agree with you. He's going to cost probably a 2nd, and I don't know if they, given the fact they don't have a 1st, I don't know if they give up. Now, if they can acquire a 2nd, all bets are off, because Cooks wants out. But I don't know. Hopkins is going to go somewhere. If somehow Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay makes a lot of sense for DeAndre Hopkins. But
that's just basically sorry for taking away Adams from you.
Dude, that would be hilarious. Actually, it really.
It's so hard, dude. Because here's the thing. I know that there's probably a bunch of people who would want him just based on the name value and the idea of putting Deshaun and DeAndre back together and then having Amari Cooper and DBJ. But the money is so hard with it, because there are, like you said, there's guys we still have to sign. We hopefully want to sign more guys to defensive line this offseason too. This year, Deshaun's contract kicks in, so we're going to have to start to look at how that's going to impact the cap.
It'll be restructured. What they're going to do,
yeah.
They're going to make majority of it a signing bonus, and they're going to do the same with Amari Cooper as well, like they did last offseason.
So, and then obviously it's the compensation that you're going to have to give up for it, and I just don't know if Andrew Berry would prefer doing that over trying to find somebody who he can have long-term control of, that isn't going to just be hey, he's 31. Who knows if he's how healthy he's going to be able to remain. I mean, obviously he got, 8 weeks off this season for free, or not for free. I guess he did get fined, but he got 8 weeks off off the season. So he was pretty well rested, but I mean, didn't he have a pretty bad injury just last year though? That had him out for a couple of weeks during the season.
I don't think so. I know he was suspended this year. I
know he was suspended this year.
I think it was just suspension.
I thought he was injured like the year before in 2021. Like he had gotten an injury at some point.
I'd have to look that
Actually,
up.
I think you're right, because isn't that why he took the PEDs? Basically,
I'm not 100%
It could be.
sure.
It could be.
I mean, it makes
be.
more sense that
But
way.
that's what I'm thinking, is that he has sustained an injury, and that maybe during his rehab he had taken something, he just didn't know that it was still in his system when he like got tested, and
It was his
that
pre-workout,
whole thing
bro.
happened.
There's something in his pre-workout.
I just don't really think that it's something that will fit with the way that Andrew Berry has been building this team. Like with Amari Cooper, he's a guy who fits the culture that they're trying to build, smart, tough, and accountable. I'm not saying that DeAndre Hopkins isn't smart, tough, and accountable. It's more so just, does he want to bring in a guy that already is kind of getting up there in age and is probably going to require, like, remember when we were talking about putting too much money into OBJ and Jarvis?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like, hold on, we're putting how much money into the wide receiver room? Upwards of almost $60 million if DPJ gets his contract extension that we're thinking about. Like, I just don't know if he can really justify doing that at the current price that DeAndre Hopkins is asking for.
Exactly. And something about Random Cardboard saying if you give them picks, they will eat salary because they are in a mini rebuild. I mean, they are doing that, yeah, but he's still the dead cap. Even in a trade, you're looking at 11 million. They trade him post June 1, it's 11 million, 11.2. That in dead cap, they have to take on to trade him. It's 22. If I'm sure there's like they would do half and half, but you're still talking. That's money Arizona has to take on. That's money you're taking on. And then you still have to give him a new contract at 31 years old when he has not played a full season. It's just, it's too much of a risk at this point, and it just doesn't make sense.
I think Browns fans need to move past DeAndre Hopkins already. Yeah, I just don't. It's not. I don't think it's happening. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen because I'm not Andrew Berry, but I do not think that is happening.
Articles are going to use clickbait. Guys, if you see it, Pro Football Network already concluded the Browns. CBS Sports said the Browns. Ignore it. Everywhere is going to connect the Browns because of the Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins relationship. So
also,
just have to.
Also, if you see anything that says that the Browns have inquired on it, that doesn't mean anything. That just means they called and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Just wondering, like,
what's
your asking price?
Yeah.
And then if they say the asking price, and then Andrew Berry says, "Oh, okay, no thanks," and then hangs up, that's an inquiry. It doesn't mean that they're actually looking to do it. It just means that they were curious and they just made a call. So it's not.
Andrew Berry calls about every single player in the league, like. It's what it is. That's what you do as a good GM.
He looks to improve every position, no matter what position it is, every single year.
Mm-hmm. And there's always guys, too, that will become available that we don't think about. It happened with Amari. It really did. Like, I don't think you're getting another where you can trade a fourth-round pick for a guy like Amari Cooper, but, like, in that whole situation, given Cooper's age and everything. But it is something to monitor moving forward. Again, glad to see that 51% agree that if you want to address the defense, you can't bring in DeAndre Hopkins. So that's encouraging to see. Gentlemen, as we're wrapping things up here, Christmas is over, which is really hard to believe for me because it went by so quick. But I don't know about you guys. I got like 6 or 7 items from Homage. Most comfortable clothes, man. I mean, I was telling Jack, their hoodies. I have never worn a more comfortable hoodie in my entire life.
They're so comfy. You think their shirts are comfy?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
And I got that.
I mean, what is the thing you like best about it?
About their clothing?
Homage. Yeah.
I've just always loved that retro look. That retro look is just something that you can't beat. And I remember I was in Crocker Park before they closed up in the Homage out there, and I just walked into an Homage, and I think I bought like 3 shirts. I'm like, dude. And the one thing I always wanted from them was that retro starter jacket. And somehow Santa got it for me this year, dude. So now I got that orange meat.
Damn, Santa went in clutch, man. That shit sold out in like a day.
Did you guys get the starter jackets?
I didn't. I tried to, and
because you don't believe in Santa, so that's
man.
why. Yep.
Come on, man.
It's all good. It's all good, man. Yeah. Jack, what do you like most about Homage, though?
Well, I think that Zach kind of nailed it. I like the nostalgic look. I like the old school stuff. I like the fact that they have a lot of they just have so much variety. So like if you have Cavs fans or Browns fans or Guardians fans or any fans in your family of any sport, or any pop culture thing. Honestly, they've expanded just so much into basically every
WWE,
team. Yeah,
big WWE
WWE.
fans,
Like
trust me, their WWE stuff is amazing.
There's
Amazing.
stuff for them, and it's comfortable, it's nice, it's affordable, it's super high quality, and it's all official stuff. So you feel good giving it to them. It's something that'll last them for a long time, and they'll love to wear it. Like I love to wear my Browns homage shirt. So like it's just, you can't go wrong getting someone something from Homage.
Exactly. And the best thing too, when you're going to Homage, and if you haven't shopped Homage before, normally when you do, you're going to go to the website and they're going to offer you about a 10% discount on your first order. All you got to do, click the subscribe button for their emails, and they will send you discounts. They have discounts every single day. You're not going to find more comfortable apparel. You're not. That's the reason I love Homage. It's not just the design. I want to be comfortable all day. I work remotely from home. I want comfortable clothing. I just got sweatpants from Homage, and again, most comfortable sweatpants I own. I need more pairs, but I can't spend every dime I have on Homage, or I would not be able to broadcast from my apartment right now. So guys, go check out Homage. The link is in the description right there, on Facebook, on YouTube. Go check them out and tell them Network 216 sent you. And gentlemen, as we wrap up tonight's episode, anything else you guys want to add?
It's gonna be a long off season.
No, I think it's gonna be a fun off.
It's gonna be fun, but it's gonna be long because it's gonna.
Dude, I'm pumped, man.
Because I'm curious, because I just want to see how fast we get this defensive coordinator thing figured out, and then we get to start talking about the draft. So, and then we have
Bills are going to the Super Bowl.
Bills going to the Super Bowl.
Yep, absolutely.
I think
Jaguars are beating the Chargers. Jaguars are beating the Chargers.
Already got it. Yep.
We'll see. It's
happening. But hey, before we wrap up, be sure to keep praying for Damar Hamlin. He is finally back at home. The fact that he is responsive, putting out merchandise. It's awesome to see. So happy that he is breathing, that he is alive. I mean, first and foremost. So continue to pray for Damar Hamlin and that he can get back to 100% as soon as possible. Appreciate all of you tuned into this episode, the Faithful Dogs Podcast. Remember, if you're joining us on Facebook or Twitter and you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go give us a sub over there. And again, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we really appreciate that support. And you're entered in for a Cavs Homage shirt giveaway, and the winner will be announced next Wednesday. Coming up here right after us at 9 o'clock, we have the Barking Brown Show with Jacob Roach and Nick Carnes, special edition of the Barking Brown Show. And then later at 10 o'clock, we got the Dog Chug, the crew. They're going to reflect on the Brown season and, of course, provide you with plenty of laughs. We will talk to you all next week. Thank you for tuning in, and go Browns, baby.
Like, comment, and
Rock
subscribe.
Purdy.
Do
Rock
it now.
Purdy.